Chan.
Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to meet together. Please help us to come together to make this institution reflect your kingdom. Breathe life into our ideas and decisions. Help us build a team that has love and respect at its heart. Give us the strength to continue working for your kingdom in this time of pandemic. Lord, come give us the inspiration to be the best we can be. May we be a shining example of your goodness and truth within, wherever we are. Inspire our thoughts, discussions, and ideas, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth for the greater glory of you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, helas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisitil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong panggaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di maghihingi. Lumalang araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Business and Economic Outlook. I am Judge Villamor, your host for today. So the worldwide spread of the COVID-19 pandemic has had a severe impact, not just on our lifestyle, but also on the global economy. Everyone from all walks of life have been coming together and making an effort to deal with the economic shock. At the same time, we are seeing a global determination to overcome the current situation and turn it into an opportunity for growth. This year, we are dealing with not just the current issues, but also the medium and long-term implications of COVID-19. This is why the DTI Region 7 has created a webinar in order to know the various perspectives of the private sector to what's happening in business and the economy. So to formally open our program, may we call on the Regional Director, Maria Elena Arbon, for a short message.
Good afternoon. It is a privilege to be with you today during the holding of this webinar to discuss on business and economic perspectives. The worldwide spread of the COVID-19 pandemic has had a severe impact on not only on our lifestyles, but also on the global economy. People all over the world have been coming together and making a concerted effort to deal with this economic setback. At the same time, we are seeing a global determination to overcome the current crisis and turn it into an opportunity to achieve future growth. This year's theme, The Great Reset, addresses not just the current issues, but also the medium and long-term implications of COVID-19. From this perspective, we have invited speakers such as Pert Cabatana of the Cebu IT BPM Organization, or CIB.O, Mr. Felix Taguiam of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's the president of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Ma'am Elena Limocon of the Lamac Multi-purpose Cooperative. to give us their views about the impact of the pandemic on the local and global economy and the relevant medium and long-term challenges we need to face. The global spread of COVID-19 has significantly restrained economic activity worldwide. In many economies, the GDP growth rate for 2020 registered significant negative growth. Since then, with many countries and regions gradually resuming economic activity, economies have started to pick up. However, the pace of improvement has remained moderate. The spread of COVID-19 has not yet subsided globally, as we all know, and many economies continue to be severely affected. A full-fledged recovery seems much further down the road. A fall in global and domestic demand has had a negative impact on corporate profits, wages, and business fixed investment. However, the severity of the impact has been mixed across economies depending on such factors as the extent of COVID-19 contagion, their industrial composition, and the room for fiscal maneuver. As businesses face the important challenge of planning for new ways of working post COVID-19, the Department of Trade and Industry prepares MSMEs to thrive in a new reality that includes health protocols such as social distancing and even self isolation. Thus, the reason why we are holding this webinar on the business and economic outlook. COVID-19 pandemic has already changed lives and, of course, commerce. The micro, small, and medium enterprises must learn to embrace the new normal, accept new business concepts, and get past the so-called old brick and mortar mindset in order to survive. If there's anything good about the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the realization by many of the benefits of digitization. As an advocate for digital transformation, I have experienced the hurdles of convincing our MSMEs and people in general to adopt and adapt digital. Perversely, COVID-19 has effectively forced everyone to accept more digitization into their lives, work, and businesses. However, COVID-19 has also exposed some potential weaknesses in these driving forces. Supply chains have been disrupted due to strict public health measures, such as stay-at-home orders and business and production suspensions. Asian and global trading volumes have declined steeply, and demand in the travel and tourism sectors have faltered. Domestic demand has been weak in many economies, reflecting the deterioration in employment and income conditions. In the short term, we need to contain the spread of COVID-19 while supporting economic activity. It is in times like this that we should keep moving forward and envision what may come after the crisis to prepare ourselves for the next economic growth. And this is the reason why we are doing this event and why we invited our guest speakers for them to share with us their perspective, their outlook of where they're sitting, how they see the terrain, how they see the future, so that we at DTI and in government can fully understand what's happening, and so that we will also be able to come up with more relevant programs that address the need of our MSMEs and the business sector in general. So without much further ado, I formally open today's activity. Thank you, and again, good afternoon.
Thank
Good
you very
afternoon.
much. Thank you very much, Director Arbon. And now for our first speaker, will give us his view on his world perspective. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the Cebu IT BPM Organization, Pert Cabatana. Sir.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director Abon, and thank you very much, Ma'am Josilia, for this opportunity to share with you what my views are regarding what's going on in the world in terms of trade and business and industry. So let me share my screen. Okay. You see the screen, huh?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
Bert.
Yes, thank you. So the topic given to me is business and economic expectations, worldview, and this is our sharing with the DTI General Assembly. Not necessarily as SIB.O, although I am president of SIB.O, but as a player in this economy, Region 7 of the Philippines. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll introduce myself and then I'll share with you my observations about recent major technology investments in the region. Then that will be followed with the World Economic Outlook in numbers, and then a brief historic perspective on the Philippine development as a world player and participant, and then some prescribed responses. So, introduction. Who am I? Yes, well, I've been president of SIB.O for only 4 weeks. So, to me, this is a great getting to know you experience to be with DTI, which is the prime lead agency in terms of business and industry. So, I'm very happy and very glad to be here with you, sharing with you. I've been president of Auxilio for only 4 months, although I was one of the founders of the company 10 years ago. But they chose to make me president finally only 4 months ago. But before that, I've been with the semiconductors industry for 10 years. I was the first Cebuano engineer hired by Fairchild at Mactan back in 1979. That's 41 years ago. Then I've been with Telecom also for 7 years and IT BPM for 10 years. That's why the scope of my sharing covers technology in general, semiconductors and electronics, telecom, and IT BPM as well. I'm currently a doctoral student in business administration at San Carlos. And every day I read, I make it a point to read 12 online news sources, six local and six international. So a lot of the information I'm sharing with you come from that daily habit. Okay, very quickly, I'll be sharing with you some observations about recent major technology investments in the region, including Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, China, India, and the Philippines. First, Indonesia. Very recently, I saw Google making, together with Temasek, the Singaporean Provident Sovereign Fund manager, they are making something like $350 million investment in an Indonesian unicorn named Tokopedia. And then there's another Indonesian tech company named Bukukas, which got $10 million from Sequoia of India. Sequoia is one of the big venture capitals in Silicon Valley. And then also in Indonesia, we saw them attracting Tesla for battery manufacturing. No? Tesla, of course, is the electrical vehicle innovator. And Tesla, Indonesia is working hard to attract them because the primary attraction is Indonesia has nickel. So the question in our mind is, Philippines also has nickel. So how come Tesla is not talking to us? They're talking to Indonesia instead. Okay, then we move on to Vietnam. And from where I stand, Vietnam is the next tiger of Asia. Vietnam is today the world's superstar in terms of economic development. As you very well know, they have survived and won over COVID-19 very, very well. Okay, there's a lot of things we can learn from Vietnam, not only in fighting COVID, but also in terms of how they are attracting investments. Because over the years, consistently, they've been attracting 17 to 20 billion dollars a year, whereas Philippines has been attracting only 5, 6 billion dollars a year. And in a couple of years, we said we attracted 10 billion, but even that number to me is dubious because a lot of that price are actually borrowings to be paid. Anyway, as highlight, no, Vietnam attracted, or rather grabbed, stole Intel from the Philippines. Intel was the first semiconductor company in the Philippines. They were here for 30 years. Then, because of problems, they decided to move to Vietnam and Taiwan. And recently, Intel decided to pour in another $400 million or so to Vietnam. Okay, the other very noteworthy observation I have about Vietnam is the development of their ecosystem. Unlike us, where we were very happy with simple assembly, they're actually doing their own R&D and own product development. Remember last year, at the height of COVID-19, they even donated millions of pieces of face mask to the US. Can you imagine? They're making their own ventilators, and now they're making their own luxury car. Okay, their own brand, their own design. So that's Vietnam. And then Thailand. So going back to Vietnam, I suppose you're aware that last year Vietnam surpassed the Philippines finally in terms of per capita GDP. Mas dato na ang Vietnam sa Pilipinas starting last year. And that's a shame. Okay. Thailand has long overtaken us several years ago, and they continue to be doing very well with Japan as a major investor. And recently, last year, Google and Microsoft are moving to Vietnam and Thailand out of China. Singapore, of course, has been a leader, especially in advanced technology. They've recently launched this AI company named Tiger. And recently, I saw an announcement that the Google founder, Mr. Sergey Brin, is moving his family to Singapore. Can you imagine that? There is something really in Singapore that attracts the top people in the world. And part of that is they're very brilliant students, very good um, education system that emphasizes problem solving and analytical skills. They're very good at that. Moving on to Taiwan, of course, we recognize Taiwan as one of the early investors. But just a couple of highlights here. Google decided to really make Taiwan its major hub in the region by first uh, putting up its third data center. Can you imagine that? Google has 4 data centers in Asia, and 3 out of the 4 are in Taiwan. And if you're familiar with technology, a data center is very sensitive to earthquake, yet they locate themselves in an island that has earthquakes and typhoons. So that's something, no? That's telling us that even if we have natural calamities, we can still attract foreign investors, major foreign investors, if we do the right thing. And just a couple of weeks ago, I read that Google is also making Taiwan the hub of its hardware research and development outside the US. Then, for a long time, Taiwan has been a leader in semiconductors. There's a company there named Taiwan Semiconductors Manufacturers Corporation, which is the world leader in foundry chip making. So fabless semiconductor companies from the US like Qualcomm, Apple, Google, they make use of the services of Taiwan. Even Intel, they make use of the services of TSMC. This is the world giant in semiconductor, TSMC, and they are in Taiwan. And they're so successful that they're not just attracting investment, they are the ones now investing outside. They're going to the US to put up an investment there. Oh, there's an echo. There's a feedback. And then they're also putting up an R&D center in Japan as well. Very quickly, China is a leader in artificial intelligence. You've heard about Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. And if you have time, I suggest you read this book, AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, The New World Order, written by Kai-Fu Lee. Dr. Lee is a Taiwanese computer scientist who got his doctorate from Cornell University, which is one of the world's top uh, computer science universities. He was one of the early innovators in AI, and he worked for Microsoft and Google in China. But Google left China. He decided to stay behind and became venture capitalist in China. So he is very familiar with how China developed in terms of technology, especially in AI and so on. India, of course, India is one of the world's powerhouse. They still continue to attract foreign investment from Amazon, from Apple, etc. And even Google, whose CEO is himself Indian, has pledged $10 billion to digitize India. So those are our neighbors, and they're working together. Vietnam and India, they're also working together. Of course, India is a major player in the COVID fight because of their innovations and their huge manufacturing capacity for the vaccine. In the Philippines, the only couple of significant investment I saw last year was Dyson and Samsung. Dyson is investing in a second facility. They already have digital motor manufacturing facility in Laguna years ago, 5 years ago, if I am not mistaken. Then last year they decided to start a software engineering facility in Alabang, for which they will be hiring 400 software engineers. So last year, that was the significant FDI that I saw coming to the Philippines. A few years ago, Samsung also put up a research facility in Diliman. Worldwide, they have something like 22 research center, or 14, one of which is in the Philippines. And then in terms of the AI, they have just a few and none in the Philippines. No, so I'd call that a dream if we could have an AI research center from Samsung. Now, for the third part of my presentation, the World Economic Outlook. Chairman Francis Monera shared with me this article from The Economist, summarizing 15 items. But I think we can condense these observations into four. Number one, work from home will continue. Physical offices will decline. Therefore, real estate companies will have to revisit the way they put up their business and run their business. Hotels, the work hotels will disappear by half. So katong mga business travelers, mga mice, no? Mice in the tourism industry will decline, okay? And tourism will suffer. So taking that into consideration, um, for our near-term business planning. No? Education will never return to the old setup. Medical system will be affected, and primary products that will continue to attract buyers worldwide are the electronics products that support the new lifestyle. No? Now, in terms of number, yeah, people are saying that this year we'll start to see recovery. Um, ASEAN region declined by 3.7, but is expected to grow by 5.2%, going up to 6%. That is according to the IMF. No? Now, on the other hand, if you look at another source, the OECD, this time it breaks down to the country, and we can see that in the region, we suffered the most, 9% decline um, from among all the countries. We suffered the most, and therefore we are expected to recover the slowest. No, we have not managed our fight against COVID-19 as good as Vietnam, as good as Taiwan, as good as Singapore. So we will not be recovering as fast. Now, this material I got from the Management Association of the Philippines yesterday via Chairman Francis, and these numbers come from the ADB. So again, as you see here, ADB projected that the Philippines would decline by 7.3, which is already the worst for last year. But the reality is we actually declined by 9.5% according to the ADB. It's even much worse. And therefore, our recovery will be the slowest. Inflation rate in our case, we are second highest to Vietnam. Our unemployment is the highest in the region. Now, in terms of recovery, this is the first time I've well, actually the first time I've heard about the K-shaped recovery was from Jaime Augusto Subel de Ayala sometime late December. Now, this clearly illustrates to us the meaning of the K-shape. It means that some industries will recover, but some will not. And so if we are business owners and managers, we have to recognize the reality that not all will recover. Tourism will suffer. Airlines will suffer. The food business will suffer as people don't go out as much as they used to. Okay. Now, the next part is my sharing now on um, what I call the brief historical perspective of Philippine developments as a world economic player, contributor, and participant. Now, if you look at the time frame from 1800 to today, 2000, we see different products and commodities and industries cropping up as the main drivers of our international trade. So if you look at 1800, we had the Manila hemp, very, very famous, very, very highly demanded, that gave rise to the famous Manila paper and the Manila envelope, the sikat kaya Manila at that time. But later on, that disappeared because of new products coming in. Then there's sugar, then there's coconut, and then again they disappeared as major drivers of our economy. Then in the 1980, we started to see the electronics assembly coming in, starting with Intel and many others. Then you remember, people of my age would remember the 1990s, late 80s and early 90s. We had very, very strong furniture industries, toys, gifts, and housewares, and garment industries. They're practically gone today, right? Then we also have shipbuilding. We had potential. At one time, we were number 4 in the world in shipbuilding after China, South Korea, Japan. Then we're number 4, Philippines. But Hynex was it, the Subic shipbuilder. They left, so I don't know where we stand in terms of shipbuilding. Fortunately, Cebu continues to be strong in shipbuilding in Balamban. Then we have the OFW, the land base, the sea base. Then 2000, we have the IT BPM. Now, what's the major observation? The major observations are we were mostly resource based. Even today, when we look at our modern industry, OFW, especially ITBPM, they're also resource based. They depend on people as the natural resource. So reliance on natural endowment, lack of indigenous technology, no defensible competitive advantage. We relied mostly on cost leveraging and no ecosystem development. When you are in that situation, you are at the mercy of the tyranny of the S curve. I can't spend an hour explaining the meaning of it, but what it does is it's a natural component of technological and business development that you go through an early stage, a fast growth stage, and then a plateau, and then eventually a declining stage if you don't do anything special, if there's no intervention. To prevent decline, you have to intervene through innovations. Okay. In other words, we have to learn to develop value leveraging and not just cost leveraging. That's the big lesson that I want to share with you today from the perspective of Philippines and Cebu as an international player, participant in trade and commerce. So with that, I share with you the following prescribed responses: push more science and technology, push competitiveness, ease of doing business, develop industrial ecosystems, push development outside the urban areas because congested Metro Cebu is a major breeding ground for, not breeding ground, but transmission area for COVID-19. And COVID-19 will be with us for a long, long time, I tell you. Some people optimistically say it will last until 3 years, but some people say 5 years, some people say 7 years. What are the major determinants of success? Number one, how well we fight in terms of prevention, how well we fight in terms of vaccination, and how well we manage our industries, our business, despite the COVID-19. Okay, so therefore, we need to understand there's a lot of rethinking going on about globalization. In the past, globalization was, um, like I said, cost leveraging motivated, but it has gone past that. Globalization is no longer automatic. And then, like I said, we have to dance more efficiently and effectively with COVID-19. So with that, I end my sharing because I think I've exceeded my time. Yeah, I'm 4 minutes beyond my time. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to entertain questions later if there are.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Sir Pert.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
let's move on to the second speaker, who will give his national view or his perspective on the national situation. Please welcome the President of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Felix Taguiam. Sir. since Felix Taguiam is still not around.
I'm in already. Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you
sir.
very much. Can I proceed now?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Sorry. No, sorry. I just got in infrastructure problem again. Now I really do agree with Mr. Cabatana, our partner in the Cebu Chamber, the CIBO, the CIB.O, which has been a part of the Cebu Chamber, and we have been communicating all our projects with them, and we are doing a very good team together. You know, as we may all know that this COVID situation really brought down everybody to its knees. So this, what I always say, the post-pandemic is something that we are now working in the chamber on how to alleviate the losses, the closures of our MSMEs in Cebu. And firstly, I would like to thank our DTI Regional Director, Nanette Arbon. Thank you for inviting the chamber. Our OIC Regional Director, May Kinanola, distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to thank the DTI Region 7 for inviting me today to speak to you. I am truly humbled and honored to be speaking here to deliver the Philippines business and economic expectations for the year. But before I proceed, let us briefly step back and take a look at the past year. The year 2020 began with the Philippine economy in a position to strengthen. Real GDP growth was there, has averaged at an above 6% over the 10-year period, or a 6.4% average from 2010 to 2019. The robust growth of the domestic economy in recent years was achieved in an environment of generally stable inflation and anchored on purposeful structural reforms. Prior to the pandemic, our country was one of the fastest growing economy in the region, if not in the world. As stated by our speaker, Mr. Cabatana, we were before called the sick man of Asia, but for the past 10 years, that we're not sick anymore. We are on top from A to Z. We in the Philippines, we have a young working age population and registering growth of roughly 6% over the course of the greater part of our last decade, catapulted the Philippines closer to the middle income status. But the pandemic, however, appeared to be the kryptonite to the Philippines' winning formula, as lockdowns knocked out stalwart household consumptions, in turn dragging down capital formation, consumer and business confidence level plunged to a negative territory in the third quarter of 2020, foreshadowing a difficult recovery in the remaining quarter, which we are now experiencing. After exhibiting 84 consecutive months of growth, the Philippines economy contracted in the first quarters of our 2020, amounting to an average real GDP decline of almost 10%. Nevertheless, accordingly to the IMF October 2020 forecast, GDP growth is expected to pick up at 7.4% of 2021, subject to the pandemic global economic recovery, which we all know by now, the vaccine. The vaccine should come sooner than later. The key economic drivers include solid foundation, a competitive workforce, a stable job market, steady remittances, which we are experiencing until now, and investments in the construction sector. Our country's growth prospects hinge on its ability to effectively manage the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we see signs that the management of the pandemic is improving, resulting to the decline of our 7-day moving average of 4,500 cases in mid-August to below 2,000 in mid-November. But the decline of these steady cases, despite of the gradual reopening of our economy, including consumer-facing several factors, we still see the risk of increasing cases. But the nice thing is, the cases that we have been experiencing, especially here in Cebu, as you may have seen, we are now on our triple digit thing. But our health officials have given statements that 92% of our cases are mild and asymptomatic. It's because we are doing a lot of testing. Our citizens, we are now getting to more of scientific and testing in order to know what is the real score of our cases here in Cebu. In fact, this will help pave the way for the sustainable economy in 2021. The Philippines' fiscal deficit, on the other hand, is expected and significantly widened in 2020, but will consolidate in the medium term as the economy recovers. The World Bank projected that this widened to 8.7% in 2020 from 3.4% of the GDP in 2019. The larger deficit is result to the increased public spending in response to the pandemic. You know, sometimes we heard people complaining in the multimedia saying, what is our government doing? Until now, we still don't have the vaccine. We're not like in the other countries that they have it already. But we have to remember that our government is really working. Our LGUs, our provincial governor is really working hand in order to bring in the much needed vaccines. In the medium term, however, the fiscal balances will likely consolidate as public revenue and the adoption of various tax policies, including the sin tax or alcoholic beverage or the e-cigarette tax, will become effective in early 2020. But now, you see, we will know soon, and it is signed into law. What we are waiting now is the implementation. The CREATE law is already approved. So the CREATE law is about lowering of our income tax. We all know that we in the Philippines has one of the highest income tax rates. But with the new CREATE law, I hope we will spur more investments here in Cebu, or especially here in the southern part of the Philippines. In addition, our monetary policy is expected to be supportive of our growth as inflation remains stable and within the target range. The headline inflation is expected to settle at 2.5 in 2020 as commodity prices weakens and consumer demand remains subdued. The subdued inflation outlook provides additional spaces for the BSP to ease rates. Our Bangko Sentral Governor Benjamin Diokno even stated in an interview that the worst is over for the pandemic hit Philippine economy. Others may agree, others may not agree. But a remarkable rebound is expected this year However, despite the assurance, much is still to be done. We are really hoping that once the vaccine is already in our shores here in Cebu, please, everyone, we should take it. The global economy is expected to fall into a deep recession this year. A moderate growth rebound is expected in 2021, driven by a recovery in economic activities in both advanced economies and emerging markets and developing economies. The economic expansion in advanced economies would contribute to the increased demand of our Philippine goods exports, as roughly 70% of our country's exports are destined for high-income countries. As domestic and external economic conditions improve, consumption growth is expected to rebound and grow but towards the end of the year and onwards. The anticipated full opening of the economy is expected to revitalize our business activities, which would help to generate jobs and mitigate the loss in income. As we all know that our NEDA chief, Secretary Culture, is asking the government to open up more of the economy comes March 1. But we have to be very, very careful also. We have to respect each other. The minimum health standards still have to be considered, even if we have the vaccines and we have been vaccinated. Furthermore, a recovery in foreign market is expected to return. The demand for overseas workers resulting in growth in remittances. The United States is opening up more H-2 visas for our nurses, but it may not be a good news to us because we will be exporting more of our nurses, which we badly need them, but it's still economics at stage. Similar to past election cycles, pre-election activities will likely increase consumption starting the second half of 2021. Following a significant contraction in 2020, capital formation is projected to recover moderately in the next 2 years. Our fixed capital formation is expected to make a modest recovery in the next 2 years, although the expansion of private investments is likely to be dampened by the weakness in the balance sheets of some large corporations that has been severely impacted. Our pandemic that hit us did not exempt the large ones also, although the most hit are the micro, small, and medium enterprise. Import growth is also likely expected to accelerate in the next year as the government accelerates the implementation of more infrastructure projects. With renewed demand for capital goods, especially construction materials, for our build program of the government. As a result, the expected current account surplus in 2020 is likely to be followed by the current account deficit of 2021. In addition, our service sector is expected to drive the economic recovery this 2021, commanding roughly 60% of the GDP. The service sector is expected to be the main driver of 2021, while the service sector is anticipated to contract by 7.3% in 2020. The opening of the face-to-face service sectors, which soon we will be seeing again, bodes well for tourism. Here we call it the travel bubble. Our provincial governor has opened up through an executive order just this Monday that anybody is now welcome to Cebu. But all we need is just a health certificate, and and certain health protocols should be followed. The transportation industry, restaurant and food services, and wholesale and retail trade. However, at some of our social distancing measures will remain strict, and the service sector is expected to follow at 5.8% for 2021, lower than the COVID levels. Domestic tourism is more likely to resume sooner than international tourism, given constraints to international travel. You know, in 2021, the industry sector is expected to expand. Construction activities will remain with gain momentum, and manufacturing will gather steam as domestic and external demand return. Agriculture is to be the only sector to grow in 2020, but the government needs to address the unresolved challenges and vulnerabilities to weather-related shocks to accelerate growth in the medium term. There are significant changes noticed in the trends and practices in business management for 2020 and in the years to come because of the pandemic, among which process data analytics, workforce mobility, work from home arrangements, e-commerce, and digital marketing. We don't see these things during the old norm. All of this expounded and expanded exponentially during the COVID months. With these aforementioned businesses and economic expectations and trends, I believe that our Department of Trade and Industry can help us in providing relevant programs geared towards the mandate of the Rebuild Philippines or the Revitalized Philippines Investment, Livelihood, and Domestic Demand Campaign, as well as initiate programs to assist our micro, small, and medium enterprises, such as trainings, mentorships, microfinancing, and equipment support and market development for the enterprise. We have been cooperating, the CCCI have been cooperating with the DTI through the Go Negosyo KMNE program. We have been doing our mentorship program for years, and we are now going to another year of new programs to come, and what we call courses. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware that the path to recovery is tough, but this pandemic, as well other challenges, periods in our history, has once again shown our resilience and fortitude as a nation. The Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry will use this resilience to continue being the engine of Cebu's growth by leveling up engagement in activities that promote and enhance the interest and growth of the business community towards Cebu's competitive advantage. I am looking forward that together we can get through this pandemic and as a united front and continue to work toward the great restart of our country's economy. Thank you very much. Stay safe and good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Felix. Sir
you.
Felix of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Let's move on to the third speaker, who will provide her local view. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the General Manager of the Lamac Multi-purpose Cooperative, Maria Elena Limocon. Ma'am? Good afternoon, ma'am. Mute ka, ma'am. Na-mute ka.
Okay na, ma'am?
Dili mi kadungog nimo, ma'am.
Okay na.
Okay.
In behalf of Lamac MPC, I would like to greet a good afternoon to all, especially giving thanks to DTI, especially Ma'am Nanette Arbon for inviting us to share our experience during the pandemic and of course how we're able to sustain and especially in the how to revive the local economy. Okay, so amidst pandemic, of course, we, the co-op sector, especially Lamac, also being affected. And since we're also a financial institutions, so I can see that there's a decrease in the declining of the income of the cooperative in terms of the financial operation. But there's also no regret for us that we, Lamac, venture that we should be also become a diversified or cooperative. So the closure of the financial of the institutional buyers that we really serve because we are also an agriculture cooperative really affected us. Imagine 88 institutional buyers that we rely on the market of the food produced by our farmers, especially the food chain of the Jollibee, so and so on and so forth. But we came to realize that I think we have to embrace COVID nowadays. We have to continue working together in order that we could also live with our mission to take care of our members in the countryside. And there's also realization for us. There are some also benefits that we also experienced during the pandemic. Although there are so many restrictions, but in terms of the stability of the food, we don't stop there. And we are so very fortunate that before this pandemic strike us, we have in place already our food value chain, and we cannot be successful also without the help through the convergence of other government agencies, especially for the DTI. Speaking of the one of the dairy or the community-based enterprise that we have, example our dairy enterprises. So since we provide the full support on the agri value chains in the dairy, during the pandemic, we experienced that if we stop buying the milk of our farmers because there's a closure of our market, then what will happen to the farmers? So if we always also donate to the frontliners of our dairy products, so what will happen also with our resources? That is why we continue until we pray that the deep ed milk feeding is come to launch, and that here we are. We enjoy now the gains that we adhering with the result of the convergence of the government agencies. As of today, we are able to expand our dairy farmers, and that with the help of the shared facility of DTI, we're able now to produce almost we committed 80,000 children to be to avail also the milk feeding, not only in Cebu but also including Bacolod area, and that is in Negros Occidental, because they don't still have the processing facility. We are very stickered to commit that number of children because we always believe that time will come time will come, we can also expand our processing plant. That is why in our existing shared facility that we have in the dairy, in the processing facility, we can only produce I think 9,200 ml sachet of milk, and that di gid makuha ang commitment. That is why we don't stop. Again, we approach DTI to help us so that there will be more facility that can be provided so that we can have now a 24 hours processing of our milk. And that we hope that we can have now the other facility like the blast placer, the ice bank, and of course the 2 cooling tank. But we don't stop there because we are looking forward in the future to have already another row of the processing so that we can now produce more milk. And that is now in our future plan of the dairy. We are now envisioning that we can have our own retort machine. And of course, we can now deliver the milk even in the nearest, even in the farthest area of the pupils nga naasa sila dapit para amo sad ma-preserve ang iyahang usab nga kanang kuan kay mas sterilize naman po siya. Because today, ang amo mga children, ang atong mga pupils, kanang hesitant po ang atong mga parents ba nga kanang magdala sa mga milk ang i-deliver dito sa central school, and then katong mga layo, they don't have also that facility. And our future also is that limit on the milk feeding. So we can also permit another dairy products that will also encourage other group of women to undertake also the processing. Like we have now, but it's more on the dairy because we wanted that in the local we can produce dairy products wherein the resources is in the locality, because it will also help our people not to go anymore in the urban to overcrowd the city, but for greener pasture, to seek greener pasture. But then if there is enterprise in the countryside, so they can have they can uplift also their living condition. So we are looking also the partnership. So now the partnership with an Italian corner of our the pizza, which we are now looking forward with Giuseppe Pizzeria, who is also famous on the different pasta making, so that more women in the countryside can have also can also avail that kind of project. Another thing is that since we promoted also the value chain of the cacao production, so it is a value chain because in everything there is direct and there is also employment. So what we did is to continue organizing the cluster of farmers to plant cacao, and then of course we buy the beans, and through also the assistance of the DTI that we also received, also build a shared facility in the making of the tablia. So there are more women now are enjoying in the processing of the tablia. And when Secretary William Dar visited our cooperative, and then they also recommended that we have to enhance our packaging. So I think that's more another thing that we have to approach DTI to help us in the packaging. And another thing is that for the farmer side, we organized the cluster of our farmers in the cacao, and then we need also to produce a good quality beans. So that is why we need in the future, we need also another facility like the fermentation facility, and of course more solar dryer for our beans to have also a good quality beans. And another community-based enterprise that we are now in the countryside, of course, the cocoa hub, which is situated in Tuburan. And then it is really a good enterprise because direct unemployment generation daghan kaayo because in every chain of the cocoa so many product that is being also developed. So in Tuburan, we also explore another cocoa based product like we have the cocoa pit because when we also do the market, there are so many buyers that also wanted us that it should be compacted like that, and we don't have the facility. And there are also a fashion accessories for the shells, and then we also need the for the cocoa sugar, and then of course the cocoa water processing because in the cocoa water not only vinegar but then it also be good on the extension of the freshness of the fish. That is why we have now the cocoa-based cocoa water treated sardines, helping also our fisher folks. So, and we are planning in the future. We are planning also that there will be another like you say, the mini cocoa hub to be located in Pinamungahan because we have now more women's in different cluster and different barangays that is now ongoing on the doing the twining, and that it is good enterprise, especially now that they can go around, they cannot go around but can stay under home and do the twining activity, and there is money in it, no? And we also organize concealer so that more people can generate income. So another community-based activity is also located in Bugo is our Kasaba. As our Kasaba value chain enterprise, so it's good that people now came to realize that they have to go back to their farm. During pandemic, they just take it for granted. So many idle lands, but then when there is restriction for them, they visit again their farm and they need financial in the market. That is why we are now enjoying the shared facility that DTI extended to us. So our farmers, hassle free, they just deliver their fresh cassava, and then of course it is now the association that we help the Guadalupe Cassava, the Guadalupe Farmer Association, who do also the processing, and of course the 3.7 million that DTI has given to us shared facility from drying, from chipping, and of course in the granulation and then a quality packaging. We are now delivering it to San Miguel, which is also our partner in the market. So before it's only one municipality that we help. It is in Bugu. But now it replicates almost 4 municipalities. The nearby municipality like the Tabugon, the Anbantayan, and even Midilin. And in fact, we are now given a quota of, we're able now to deliver 480 tons of granulated cassava. So this is good because we encourage our farmers that if they plant the cassava, as long as they harvest it and then deliver it, we assure the market and we pay outright to them so that they will treasure and believe that there is money in agriculture. What we only lacking here, so that everything will be processed. So that is why the help of the government. That is why Lamac MPC is hosting resources of the government, and I realized that there's so many money in the government. It's only thing that how we're going to bring it down to the people in the countryside, and cooperative now came to realize that it is our important role to be the to bridge the gap so that this money is not only given without giving food, giving pack, a subsidy, but then it should be given to them and ensure that it should be sustainable. So, and of course, in the vegetables, we continue. Imagine we delivered the vegetables every day, 2 tons of vegetables from Dalagit and Sudlon, which we organized the cluster. But suddenly during the pandemic, the closure of these institutions will give us a shock. But then we don't stop there. We partner the Kadiwa of the agriculture, and being now the distributor of this vegetable to the local stakeholders like the restaurants, the carinderia, and of course household. And we eventually make our branches, since we have 31 offices in Cebu, not only lending, it could be now transformed into a one-stop, one-shop, because we make our branches also the bagsakan center of the commodity, which during the pandemic, there's a restriction for them to go to the market, to go to the town, because of there's no transportation, so they can now visit in our satellite offices so that they can buy all the vegetables that are needed, and of course the chicken, everything, and so on. And that we also encourage more farmers to continue in the vegetable production, because we always believe that if we will stop providing support to the farmers, and then they will not be inspired anymore to plant the vegetables. So that is why we embark. I'm so happy that there are some institutions now that is opening. So like some of the Japanese restaurant is opening. So we still continue delivering to them. And how about since we have also our garments during the pandemic, so resorts are closed, so we cannot also sew t-shirts for our guests, but then we shift to face mask making. Okay, and then later on we continue, we do not stop. So anything that we could provide, so like making some rugs out of the waste of the textiles that we used. So we continue, and then there's also making money. And we don't stop there. We expanded cluster of women's who continue have that skills, and they are also been retrained to other area. So that is why there is also a closure of the MIPS, and then they went to the countryside and now start working with us. So it's good also. And of course, in what we are now in the consumer. So we continue, and it is now our time that we have to be a part on the government distribution of the food subsidy. Imagine they give us 7,000 farmers now. We continue distribute the food subsidy worth 2,000 for almost 7,000 farmers. We host all the rice local producer, the farmers, because we buy all the rice that they produce, and of course the chicken, and of course the eggs. So that is also helping in the countryside. We are now in the process. We are now playing as the collective marketing agent of our people, and we came to realize that we have to continue this endeavor, because it gives us the opportunity to help also other multinational like Magnolia. So we are out of the chicken, so we partner Magnolia, sharing also their technology. And of course, how about the swine? So it's very fitting and proper that we also partner Virginia Farms, so that we can also avail their technology. And now our agritech is now forming the cluster of our swine research, because we have to prepare ourselves in the shortage of pork, not only in Cebu and in the other region. That is why our future plan, because we also provide the feeds and buy back the baboy. And of course, since we don't have a sophisticated slaughterhouse, so we partner Virginia for that. And of course, later on, we can now train our clustered meat shop that they will be also engaged in processing like chorizo and so on and so forth. And that will be our another future plan. And now, since we are now in the pandemic, so there is restriction in the communication, face to face. So we have 103,000 members, and that is why we partner smart. We partner smart because they have also the CSR on training our members in terms of digitalization for the online marketing of their product, and it also help us our sari store owners. So because we have also so many sari store owners now, we also partner smart as now the distributor of the load, and then this sari store will be our reseller. And we have now also directly partner with a region, the supplier of cell phone, so that our lending now offering a cell phone loan to our members, so that even they are in the farm, they just document their problem and pass it on our agritech without also having a face-to-face conversation. So that is digitalization in partnership with the smart. So so many multinationals that we tap to help us, so that their merchandise could also reach in the Parpang barangay, and especially the pure food. So we are now catering the needs of our sari store owners, so that instead of going out, they can just stay in their store and let Lamac deliver their goods that they wanted, so that we can also live in the restriction because of the pandemic. There are so many things that they are planned, which is in our mind, but then since we have a limited time, so I cannot show you everything, but I'm so happy. Lamac is so happy that we are now the partner of the government agency like DTI, who is really accommodating us every time that we need for our the facility in order to continue our processing, so manufacturing, and DTI really help us. And of course, other government agency. Convergence is the key in order that we in the co-op sector can also implement our role, helping also making a difference in the countryside in terms of local business and local economy revival. So I think that is all for my sharing.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Elena. Ma'am Elena is actually the last speaker for our FB live stream viewers. But before Christian turns off the OBS, allow me to wrap up properly the first episode of this economic and business outlook. So COVID-19 pandemic has indeed changed life and commerce. The MSMEs have learned to embrace the new normal, and many have gotten past the so-called brick and mortar mindset in order to survive. So in the short term, we need to contain the spread of COVID-19 while supporting the economic activity. So that's where DTI comes in with its plans and programs for the MSMEs. It is in these times that we should keep moving forward, prepare ourselves for the next economic growth. So I'd like to thank our speakers, Mr. Pert Cabatana, Mr. Felix Taguiam, and Miss Maria Elena Limocon. Thank you for being with us and for joining us. And we'll be having actually Q&A, a short Q&A with our employees, DTI employees, after this wrap up. So this is Georgie Villamor, and thank you to all our viewers for being with us in this first episode of the Business and Economic Outlook. So see you in the next episode. Maayong hapon.
Okay. Off na to.
So ang next would be, of course, no, ang accomplishments. Presentation of the 2020 accomplishments, which will be given by Miss Sherilyn, our planning officer, Miss Sherilyn Garces. She, please show your beautiful face. Oh, by the way, do you have questions for our speakers before they?
Yeah, let's do the Q&A first so that our speakers, we can excuse our speakers, no?
Yeah, so yeah, mas maayo.
Okay,
If there
guys.
are any questions from the employees.
Okay. Questions?
Especially from our provincial directors na mo implement sa mga projects, mga provincial staff. So, na questions? I'm sure gitingali na.
Maybe can I start na lang? Although I didn't hear a lot of the koan. Okay, I have another meeting, but I'm just curious for guidance. So can I ask our resource persons, it's Sir Pert, Sir Felix, Ma'am Ellen? I mean, DTI, no? So from your viewpoint, how can DTI help you, or how can DTI, what kind of program should we be rolling out so that we can be more responsive, or more relevant, and what are the areas for partnerships that we can do siguro with between DTI and your respective organizations? I'm sure Ma'am Ellen already outlined a lot, because Ma'am Ellen is really our #1 partner in the countryside, but I'm really curious, Cebu Chamber, but see that, that's something we need to also to explore. So okay, so with all that's happening right now, what other partnerships or initiatives should we go into together? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to take a shot at that question, if I may, Director Arbon. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. There are two things I'd like to put forward now in response to the question, what can DTI do more to help business and industry? And again, speaking from my point of view as somebody from the tech sector, somebody now the president of CIB.O, I really see two things, very important things that you can do. Number one is greater focus on attracting investment, uh, not only domestic, but especially foreign direct investment. If you recall in my presentation, I really spent more than